I want to tell you a secret, something that I just don't think you know. You're my first thought in the morning, my last thought in my bed at night. In between I dream of you by my side, sort of an obsession. I want to tell you a secret.
This is Straight Up. I'm Stella Winston. I have in my hands a very wonderfully illustrated book and well-written book called Portraits of African American Heroes. The author of the biography is Tanya Bolden, and it is illustrated by Ansel Pitcairn. I have right here in the studio the illustrator of this wonderful book, Ansel Pitcairn, and I'd like to welcome him to Straight Up.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, before we begin, you are a Brooklynite, Crown Heights.
Yes.
But you were born in London, and your parents are from Trinidad.
Yes.
Right. So I want to get that in, you know, straight out of Brooklyn.
Most of my portraits are watercolor and acrylics on watercolor paper. And the process basically is I do a photo shoot with friends, people I know, and several drawings from the photos. And once I find a piece that feels good, that I'm working with, I transfer it to the paper and begin painting. I like to keep it loose and real, basically.
Okay, so you take the photos yourself? You're the photographer?
Yes.
Okay. And so, of course, the photography session is one session. Then you make the decision. Now, how long does it actually take for you to then paint the whole portrait? Is it a process over days, weeks, months?
It usually depends on the size of the piece, but an average portrait, this will begin as a 2 or 3 hour pencil drawing on the paper, and then once I start painting, it's usually 7 or 8 hours.
Now we move on to one of the African Americans that made it into your book, Portraits of African American Heroes, and this is Thurgood Marshall. So tell us a little bit about this.
Yes. Thurgood Marshall was the first African American elected to the United States Supreme Court, and one of the most challenging things for Tanya, the writer, and I was deciding who to pick out of the allotment of 20 people that we were given. And we did a bit of arguing because there are so many African Americans that we wanted to choose, but the publisher, Dutton Books, let us know that we were limited to 20. And so Thurgood Marshall made it into that list.
So what was the criteria for choosing the 20? Did it have to be a certain time period? Or
we actually broke them down into different categories. People in political arenas, people who represented the communities, civil rights related people, and sports figures.
Okay.
You
So
know.
you went across the spectrum
Yes.
of African American heroes. Now I want to read just the first paragraph of his biography written by Tanya Bolden, and it's very well written, I must say. I mean, it just captures you. Like the first paragraph, it was very good. Okay, this is Thurgood Marshall. When he was very young, his family called him Goody, but that didn't last for long. Naughty, rambunctious, argumentative. These are just a few of the adjectives that fit the boy whose parents named him Thoroughgood after a seafaring uncle. But the boy changed his name to Thurgood while in 2nd grade. I got tired of spelling all of that and shortened it. He stayed the rebel throughout his school days. That really captures the spirit of Thurgood Marshall.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Now we move on from Thurgood Marshall to one of Brooklyn's now departed,
Sorry.
Shirley Chisholm.
Yes. When I was actually in the 2nd grade, I met Shirley Chisholm. She came and gave a lecture at my public school, which at the time PS 191 in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. And I'll never forget, as I must have been 7 or 8 years old, looking up from the auditorium, seeing this woman and wondering, why is she so angry? Because she was pounding at the podium, letting us all know that education was the most important thing for us and for us to stay in school. And I just find it a bit ironic that, 20-something years later, she would be one of the people that Tanya and I chose for the book. She just always stuck in my mind. I didn't have the slightest idea who she was back in 2nd grade.
But you were wondering, why is this woman pounding
Yes.
on the podium?
Yes, she was a bit frightening, I have to say.
And now let's go to Tanya Bolden's writing on her, and it sort of does complement what you just said about Shirley Chisholm. The fighting spirit and the nerve to speak up and out were evident early on in the woman born Shirley Anita St. Hill, the oldest of 4 daughters of a mother from Barbados and a father from Guyana. When very young, Shirley was a pushy, bossy kid. By the time I was 2 and a half, no bigger than a mite, she wrote, I was already dominating other children around me with my mouth. I lectured them and ordered them around. Even mother was almost afraid of me. Shirley.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And we move on. This portrait, along with some other of yours, really fascinate me the most, because you take nature and you intertwine it with Black women. Tell me, how did that come about, and what's going on with that? How did that develop?
Well, it was just an idea while I was pushing some paint around on a board one day, and I kept drawing and painting women with nature, and then I began a series of women with locks, and combining them with trees and wood grains, because I love the patterns of various wood grains. And it just took on a life of its own. And I began a series I called Mother Earth at the time.
And how many portraits like this are in the series?
Oh, there were about 15 altogether.
Wow.
And it's evolved into my 3rd children's book, which is in production right now, and that's titled A Tree Story.
And it really makes sense. The Black women's hair, especially today in the current style, where Black women are wearing their hair in a more natural state, not just the fro, but just letting it flow naturally.
Yes.
And it seems you've captured that freedom that Black women are feeling, with their hair. And, people say, well, hair is just fluff. Hair is a big thing, especially for women. And it seems to match so beautifully with the trees that you use where you put the women in. So it's really very beautiful. I think it reflects Black women in the hair very, very well. I love
Thank you.
it. Okay. And we move on to the last one.
This was another portrait, almost 10 years old now, back in '97 when I was doing a series of friends in the neighborhood. I was living in Fort Greene at the time, and I was just asking friends of mine if they wouldn't mind if I took their photograph to paint their portraits. And Marie was one of the first people to volunteer.
Okay.
And she's a great friend, and I thank her for it.
She has a great smile.
Yes, she does.
Very much so, great smile.